Уважаемые коллеги и
Dear
друзья,
friends, it is my honor to address you at this esteemed Jerusalem Post Leadership Forum. I'm grateful for the opportunity to speak at such a truly critical moment. The military operation of the Israeli Defense Forces, launched in response to the brutal October 7th terrorist attacks by Hamas, has triggered an unprecedented wave of global anti-Semitism and unjust criticism of Israel's rights to defend its citizens and to ensure their security. While Hamas and its supporters celebrate the International Criminal Court's decision to issue arrest warrants for Israel's Prime Minister and former Defense Minister, we cannot remain silent. This is a grave injustice that must not go unnoticed. We call on all ICC member states to reject this shameful decision and refuse to enforce these arrest warrants. Israel is fighting for the security of its citizens in a complex and morally challenging battle against terrorists who employ the most despicable war tactics. Even if we take into account all alleged missteps, it's unthinkable to equate the leaders of a democratic state with the masterminds of a terrorist group responsible for the horrific attack on thousands of innocent civilians. In recent years, we have witnessed the profound ineffectiveness of institutions meant to uphold international peace and justice. The United Nations and international courts in The Hague became nothing more than an arena of political games, far from their initial purpose, which they are not fulfilling. Through their actions, those institutions only exacerbate existing problems rather than resolve them. It became evident that the existing structures are failing. Global leaders must step forward with new, more efficient frameworks for justice and diplomacy. We are deeply grateful to the U.S. administration for its recent veto of the United Nations Security Council resolution calling for an unconditional ceasefire in Gaza, without demanding the immediate, unconditional release of hostages held by Hamas. Such one-sided demands defy common sense and exemplify the destructive diplomacy that can bring no good except for deepening the crisis. We also commend the United States Senate for decisively rejecting 3 anti-Israel resolutions. Proposals to halt military aid to Israel set a dangerous precedent, and we are glad that the majority of American lawmakers recognize the importance of supporting the vital strategic ally. It must be understood that any attempt to undermine Israel's ability to defend itself against Iran-backed terrorists serves only to embolden those who seek the destruction of Israel and, ultimately, the entire framework of Western civilization, built on freedom and the sanctity of human life. European leaders must also grasp this reality. As long as Iran continues to play a destructive role in the region, it must face isolation. Its influence on the internal affairs of other nations must be significantly diminished. We support the truce agreement in Lebanon as long as it fosters governance by legitimately elected representatives rather than Iranian proxies. In these turbulent geopolitical times, we need constructive diplomacy rather than a destructive one. A shining example of such diplomacy is the Abraham Accords, an extraordinary achievement of U.S. policy in the Middle East that has genuinely transformed the region. These agreements have set a new precedent for peace and cooperation between Israel and its neighbors, demonstrating the remarkable possibilities that can be achieved through bold visionary leadership. What once seemed impossible has given people in the Middle East hope that a more peaceful and stable future may be closer than it appears. These steps were not easy, but they remind us that even deeply rooted paradigms are subject to change. Transformation is possible, and together we can build a future shaped by reason, dialogue, and a genuine desire for peace. However, today, I would like to reflect not only on what has been done, but what has yet to be accomplished. The cruel realities of multiple wars have become all too familiar, and peace often feels like a very distant aspiration. But we must not get used to it. Now is the time to move forward. It's time to discuss the post-war arrangement. Yet, such a dialogue is only possible under a few fundamental conditions. First, the unconditional recognition of the State of Israel. It is inconceivable that in the 21st century the Jewish people's right to self-determination remains subject to debate. The historical decisions of the international community that affirmed Israel's creation must not be questioned. Second, the unavoidable right of Israel to peace and security. The Jewish state's right to exist peacefully, protect its citizens and borders cannot be the subject of compromise. This is the foundation of any meaningful discussion about the Middle East's future. But we too must re-examine our role. Apparently, no one will bring peace to us on a silver platter. We must proactively seek new formulas and be willing to find compromises while firmly upholding our core conditions. At this pivotal moment, I wish to address Israeli leaders once more. Today calls for maturity, wisdom, and responsibility. The Jewish people in Israel and the diaspora are looking to you for actions that unite rather than divide. We stand at a historic crossroad where every decision will shape our future for decades to come. In such times, being a politician is not enough. You must be a leader. We were destined to live in an era of rapid change and immense challenges. Every age presents its own trials, but also opens doors to new opportunities. I know those gathered here today do more than just observe the world's changes. They are actively shaping them. Addressing my colleagues here today, I feel that hope for change is not an abstract concept. It is alive in people who are ready to build bridges where once stood walls. It is alive in their drive to envision and create a world where respect and security replace hostility and fear. Here, among the leaders of the Jewish world, I firmly believe that change is not only possible, it is inevitable. The Euro-Asian Jewish Congress is ready to support any initiative that brings us closer to a more peaceful and prosperous future. Thank you for your attention.